The gymnasium of Colegio Olimpico, a traditional private school known for its sports achievements, was filled with students and family members that afternoon. The stands were buzzing, flags were waving, and the smell of popcorn mixed with the fresh scent of disinfectant on the court floor. Natalia Silva, a 23-year-old black girl, was tying the laces of her basketball shoes with precision. Tall, with broad shoulders and a firm posture, Natalia was the captain of the school's girls' basketball team. Since entering the school on a sports scholarship, she had stood out for her dedication and talent, earning the respect of most of her teammates, but also the discomfort of some who saw her success as an exception. The game that afternoon was decisive, the final of the inter-school championship. The opponents were from Colegio Imperial, known both for the skill of their players and the arrogance of their athletes. The first half of the game was balanced. Natalia led the team with determination, distributing precise passes and making accurate shots. The opponents, annoyed, began to provoke her subtly. Subtle pushes, whispered comments. "You're playing really well for someone like you." One of the opponents jabbed after a ball dispute. Natalia took a deep breath, ignoring it. The coach had always warned her not to react to provocations. "They want to destabilize you. Keep your head in the game." But in the second half, the confrontation intensified. The same opponent provoked her again, this time pushing her hard. Natalia lost her balance, fell, but quickly got up. "Get up already, girl. This game isn't for you," said the opponent, laughing with disdain. Natalia felt her blood boil. She tried to hold back her anger. But when the opponent approached to grab the ball again, Natalia blocked the movement forcefully, and both fell to the ground. A commotion broke out. The referee blew the whistle, the crowd shouted, and soon the coaches entered the court to separate them. The coach of Colegio Imperial began to shout, demanding severe punishment for Natalia. "Is this athlete behavior, or is this what we can expect from someone who doesn't know how to lose?" The referee consulted with the officiating team. And, to Natalia's surprise, she was ejected from the game. The opponents looked at her with mocking smiles. Her own team looked at her with fear, as if she had done something unforgivable. As she walked to the locker room, Natalia heard a comment from the stands. "It's always like this, with people like her. They can't control themselves." Natalia closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. This wasn't just about a game. It was about who she was, or at least who they believed she was. The silence of the locker room contrasted with the noise of the court. Natalia sat on the wooden bench, elbows on her knees and face buried in her hands. She was frustrated, humiliated, and furious. A few minutes later, the door opened and Carol, her best friend and teammate, entered cautiously. "Hey, Nat, are you okay?" Natalia raised her head, her eyes red with held-back tears. "Do you think I'm okay, Carol? They took me out of the game like I was a criminal." Carol sighed and sat beside her. "It was unfair. Everyone saw that they provoked you the whole time. But the coach of Imperial has a lot of influence. You know how it is." Natalia knew exactly how it was. Since entering Colegio Olimpico, she had fought to prove her worth. She knew that some teammates and even teachers saw her as a problematic scholarship student, someone who was only there to improve the school's inclusive image. They just needed a reason, and I gave it to them, said Natalia resentfully. The team coach, Professor Marcos, appeared at the door, looking hesitant. "Natalia, we need to talk. The administration has decided to suspend you for 3 games. They said your behavior was inappropriate for a school athlete." Natalia's head spun. "What? But what about them? They provoked me the whole time. Why doesn't anyone see that?" Professor Marcos lowered his gaze, embarrassed. "The administration wants to avoid problems with Colegio Imperial. They've already threatened Ardor to appeal to the Sports Federation. And, well, the school's image comes first." Those words pierced Natalia. The school's image came before her, before the effort she put into every practice, before the love she had for the sport. In the following days, Natalia began to avoid the busy hallways, feeling the stares, some of pity, others of judgment. When she tried to argue with the administration, they simply said that she needed to learn to control her reactions. The breaking point came when she saw a post on Colegio Imperial's social media. It was a photo of the opposing team celebrating their victory, with the caption, "Congratulations to the true athletes. Sports are about discipline, not aggression." The comments below were even worse. Jokes about wild athletes, veiled racist insinuations, and no one from her school defended her. Carol tried to convince her to report the situation, to speak to the media or seek external help, but Natalia hesitated. She felt that if she fought, she would just be another stereotype to confirm. But at the same time, staying silent felt like a painful surrender. That night, lying in bed, Natalia couldn't sleep. The glow of her phone screen illuminated her face as she reread the racist comments on Colegio Imperial's post. Each word seemed to weigh more than the last. She wanted to respond. She wanted to scream, but the fear of being seen as aggressive stopped her. Then, a message arrived. It was from Sara, a former teammate, now at a public school after losing her scholarship at Colegio Olimpico. "I saw what happened, Nati. This is so unfair. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here." That unexpected message ignited something inside Natalia. Sarah had faced so many difficulties at the school, always seen as inadequate by the teachers. She never stayed silent. Natalia decided to respond. "Thanks, Sa. I think I really need to talk." For hours, they talked about what Natalia had been through. Sarah listened, understood, but also challenged her to think. "You always told me not to lower my head. Now it's your turn. Do something, Nati." The next day, still hesitant, Natalia sought out Carol and told her about the conversation. Carol, always by her side, suggested something bold. Take the case to the school's Justice and Human Rights group, a small but committed group of students. At the meeting, Natalia shared her story. She talked about the constant provocations, the unfair suspension, and the racist comments on social media. Some stayed silent, uncomfortable, but others were outraged. "This isn't just about the game. It's about how they treat us here, how they treat those who don't fit this perfect school standard," said Natalia, her voice firm. With the group's support, they decided to organize a meeting with the school administration. This time, she wasn't alone. Some classmates, Carol, and even Sarah, who was invited to share her experiences, were present. The principal, a serious and traditional woman, listened to the accounts attentively. When they tried to downplay the incident as sports emotions running high, Sarah intervened. "This isn't just emotion. It's racism. I left here because they always treated me like a problem. Now I see nothing has changed." Sarah's words made the principal hesitate. The problem was bigger than Natalia's suspension. It was about the environment that allowed and normalized that kind of behavior. After the meeting, the school agreed to review Natalia's punishment, investigate the racist comments online, and promote workshops and training on racial discrimination and prejudice. Natalia left the room relieved but also restless. The fight wasn't over yet, but she finally felt capable of fighting. On the way out, Carol smiled and hugged her friend. "You did the right thing, Nati, for you and for all of us." Natalia smiled back. For the first time, she felt her voice had truly echoed. In the days following the meeting with the administration, the tension at Colegio Olimpico was palpable. The decision to review Natalia's suspension and investigate the racist comments brought heated discussions among students, teachers, and even parents. Some classmates openly supported her, praising her courage to confront injustice. Others whispered in the hallways, saying she was making a scene or playing the victim card. Natalia tried to ignore it, but every comment or disdainful look reminded her that this fight was hard and the path was still far from being completely fair. Colegio Olimpico announced a mandatory lecture on diversity and prejudice, led by a specialized NGO. The sports court was organized to host all students and teachers. On the day of the event, Natalia sat beside Carol and some members of the Justice and Human Rights group. The atmosphere was tense, with many there not understanding or not wanting to accept the need for that conversation. The speaker, a black woman with a firm voice and welcoming gaze named Dr. Regina, began by sharing her own journey, the difficulties faced as a student and professional, the suspicious looks, the hasty judgments. Her speech touched many, but the most impactful moment came when she opened the floor for personal accounts. Natalia hesitantly stood up and took the microphone. Her hands were trembling, but her voice came out firm. "I love playing basketball. It's my passion, my refuge. But on that court, that day, I wasn't seen as an athlete. I was seen as someone aggressive, incapable of controlling impulses, all because I wasn't supposed to behave that way. But no one asked why I reacted that way, what I was facing there. The silence in the court was absolute. Some teammates averted their gaze, embarrassed. Other students seemed surprised, as if finally understanding the depth of what had happened. After the lecture, some classmates approached Natalia to apologize. One of the opposing team's players even reached out to her on social media, saying she didn't know how much her comments had hurt her. Still, it wasn't easy. Natalia knew many still saw her as the girl who caused problems, but she also realized that by sharing her story, she opened space for others to speak as well. The team coach, Professor Marcos, asked to talk to her after practice. "Natalia, I know I failed by not supporting you that day. I should have looked beyond the incident, understood the context. I want to apologize, and I want your support to improve how we handle these situations on the team." It was a moment of relief, but also responsibility. Natalia knew her personal struggle was now part of something bigger, a continuous effort to ensure athletes like her were seen for their talent and effort, not the prejudices others carried. The inter-school tournament final was approaching again, and this time, Colegio Olimpico would be the host. The court was decorated with colorful banners, and the atmosphere was one of anticipation. For Natalia, it was more than just a game. It was an opportunity to show who she really was, an athlete, not a stereotype. The preparation for the tournament had been intense. Professor Marcos, now more attentive and aware, held internal lectures with the team, reinforcing the importance of respect both on and off the court. Natalia noticed a change in the environment. Classmates who once avoided her began to ask about her game, to respect her leadership as captain. But the tension returned when she learned they would face Colegio Imperial again, the same team against which everything had happened. The memory of the provocations and racist comments was still fresh in her mind. On the day of the game, the stands were packed. The principal of Colegio Olimpico opened the ceremony by highlighting the importance of respect and sportsmanship. Natalia noticed the presence of Dr. Regina, the speaker who had helped transform the school's stance. Her presence seemed like a silent but powerful support. When the game began, the atmosphere was tense. Natalia led her team with focus, ignoring the opponent's attempts to provoke her. Still, in the second half, one of Colegio Imperial's players, the same one who had provoked her before, tried to push her during a play. This time, Natalia held back the impulse to react. She looked at the player firmly and kept playing. The opponent, frustrated, continued the provocations. Until, during a heated dispute, she tried to trip Natalia on purpose. The referees blew the whistle, immediately issuing a technical foul to the Imperial player. The court filled with murmurs. The Colegio Imperial coach began to complain, but the referees stood by their decision. For the first time, Natalia saw justice being served in front of everyone. She didn't need to shout, didn't need to react with anger. She just stood firm. In the last second of the game, with the score tied, the ball reached Natalia's hands. The entire gym held its breath. She shot and scored. The buzzer sounded, and the victory was theirs. The team ran to hug her, applauding and celebrating. In the stands, Carol and Sarah shouted her name. Natalia looked at the crowd and saw that this time she was seen as an athlete, a leader, and a champion, not as someone out of control. After the game, while receiving the championship medal, the Colegio Imperial coach approached, reluctantly but finally acknowledging, "You played really well. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel like you didn't belong here." Natalia took a deep breath, holding the medal firmly. "Thank you. But it wasn't just about belonging here. It was about being respected." The moment was brief but symbolic. Natalia felt that, more than winning a game, she had conquered her space, a space that should have always been hers. The victory in the inter-school tournament marked a new chapter for Natalia and for Colegio Olimpico. The school, once marked by its elitism disguised as tradition, began to rethink its role in shaping its students, not just as competitors, but as conscious and respectful citizens. The impact of the game spread beyond the stands. Students, who once stayed silent in the face of injustice, began to question prejudiced behaviors. The Justice and Human Rights Group, now larger and more active, organized frequent meetings to discuss topics like racism, gender, and inclusion. Natalia was often invited to speak, and her voice echoed as a symbol of resistance and strength. In the following weeks, the Colegio Olimpico board invited Natalia to participate in a meeting with the pedagogical coordinators. They wanted to hear her, to better understand the experiences she and other scholarship students faced. During the conversation, Natalia suggested something bold. It would be important to include topics on prejudice and discrimination in the curriculum, officially, not just as a response to a problem, but to educate from the start. The principal, who initially seemed resistant, reflected and agreed. Colegio Olimpico began offering regular workshops on diversity and respect, open to parents as well. The impact of the tournament also reached Colegio Imperial. After the commotion during the game, the school's administration was pressured to review its stance and the attitudes of its coaching staff. The coach, once resistant, was required to attend awareness training. The player who had provoked Natalia sent a private message, apologizing sincerely. Natalia responded simply, "I accept your apology, but I hope this makes you think about how you treat others from now on." Natalia's direct and mature response showed that her goal was never just to win a game. It was about respect, recognition, and justice. At the end of that semester, Colegio Olimpico held a closing ceremony honoring students who had stood out not only in competitions, but also as agents of change. Natalia was called to the stage, not just as the basketball team's champion, but as someone whose voice inspired real transformations. With the medal shining on her chest, she looked at the audience and saw diverse faces, attentive and receptive. For the first time, she felt that space also belonged to her, not as a concession or exception, but because she had earned it with courage and truth. A few years had passed since that landmark victory. Natalia was now studying physical education at a public university, with plans to specialize in sports psychology. Her goal was to help young athletes deal with emotional pressure, especially those who, like her, faced prejudice and discrimination both on and off the court. Colegio Olimpico had also changed. The Justice and Human Rights Group remained active, and many students began to see the school space differently. Natalia, although no longer a student there, was often invited to speak at events on inclusion and diversity. Her voice, which she once felt was silenced, was now valued as a symbol of resistance. During a university conference on sports and racial inequality, Natalia reunited with Sarah and Carol. The three reminisced about past challenges with nostalgic smiles, but also pride in the path they had walked together. "Do you remember that day on the court?" asked Carol, laughing. "The way you made that winning shot, leaving everyone in silence?" Natalia laughed, shaking her head. "I was so nervous that day, but now I see it wasn't just about that game. It was about proving something to myself." Sarah smiled, with that same confident look as always. "You didn't need to prove anything. You were already amazing before all of this. It's just that now the world knows too." Later, while walking home alone, Natalia passed by an outdoor basketball court. A group of children was playing, laughing and competing without the pressure of judgment. Among them, a black girl with braided hair dribbled past her opponents with skill and confidence. Natalia stopped to watch for a moment, remembering the young athlete who once felt out of place. When the girl made a perfect shot, she looked at Natalia and smiled, as if asking for silent approval. Natalia returned the smile, giving a thumbs up, in encouragement. There, in that simple moment, she realized the impact of her journey. She wasn't just an athlete who faced injustice. She was a living example that fighting for justice is worth it. As she walked away, she heard one of the boys say to the girl, "You play well, huh? What's your name?" And the girl replied, firm and full of pride, "I'm Natalia." Natalia's heart filled with emotion. Her name now meant something greater, a symbol of courage for those who needed to believe in themselves.